Okay, hello and welcome to setting things up so that you can actually put an IK FK um, arm or leg on an existing rig. And the way that we want to do this is we want to take something that has already been put together as an IK only set of limbs. In this case, I'll use the very model used from this morning's tutorial about blend shapes. And then I will roughly destroy those heads and then move on to showing about taking an existing rig, which has in this case an IK set up for the hand, and making it IK FK. And boy, could that weighting use some help. So this is going to be a tutorial that shows you kind of the how to do it, but since it already works with things done in another tutorial, and this is extremely slow work. It's like there's going to be a difference between the tutorial of showing you how to weight and then waiting for you. So the one you want to work with in tandem with in this tutorial is the one that's in 5A, the IK FK setup. So that would be over here, set key and expressions, number 5, IK FK setup. And that shows you as a refresher how to set up the arms and make the skeleton actually go between an FK and an IK setup. So what is unique to this particular tutorial is the fact that I'm going to show you how to go about doing it, and a little bit more of a technique. First of all, don't put your outliner there, it looks silly. So it's going to be much more of a technique. So here's the issue. We already have one set of bones for the arm and the leg. They're both IK, but we need an IK FK solution. So what we want to do is start out here at the clavicle. Again, you've already got these nice little layers here, so you can turn things off if you're not dealing with them. In fact, you could put all these bloody constraints into their own layer. Create layer from selected, and then let's just create control layer, and give that a nice disappearing act. So what we have here is, I'm going to clean things up, just show, gosh, I just want to show joints at this point, and I want to show maybe the IK solutions. Do I even want to do that? No, man. Live dangerously. So here we are, the IK joints. You can see which ones are kind of already rigged. You get that little strange brown tendon between the wrists and the shoulders. But these things already exist as controlled, as things that are being controlled. So how then do we manufacture an FK-IK on top of this? Well, here's the solution. Really what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating, since in the tutorial you create duplicates of the arm when we start, we're going to be doing the same thing here. So I'm going to create a duplicate of joint L at the clavicle, not the shoulder, the clavicle, one step up. That's just a duplicate. Again, you come up here to duplicate, or you can do Control D, and from here I'm going to then unparent it. And what I'm doing is I'm going to delete the constraints on it, of course, and then a shift click opens the whole bloody thing up, so I can get rid of anything I don't need. So what does that mean exactly? Well, I'm creating, and it probably is in the arms layer, since when you create a duplicate of something, chances are it goes, it's still there. It goes into the same layer. And what I would like to do is I would like to create an FK arm. So the arm that is on the goblin right now, the one that I duplicated, I have to create two guides. So I'm not really taking the existing bone structure off of the goblin. What I'm doing is I'm duplicating it so I can create an FK bone, and I'm going to duplicate it again to create the IK bone. And you go, well, now wait a minute, he already has an IK. You are right. But we are going to be taking the original goblin arm here, and we are basically going to take away all the constraints from it. So because it's going to, from here on out, it's not going to be controlled by the IK. It's going to be controlled by going between an IK, a separate IK, and a separate FK bone, just like you can see in the tutorial. So we have, luckily, a template of the bone we need, which is this arm. And so we copied it. And now we are going to, and we moved it down here. And here's a further tip. You don't need these bloody fingers. So everything that goes beyond this point, you don't need it. That being said, you can just come in here and delete, 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 delete all those fingers because we don't need them. And it basically just stops here at the wrist. So what I've done is I've copied these three, well, four, because the end bone always counts as a fourth. But I've copied these bones from the clavicle out to the shoulder, to the elbow, to the wrist. That's all I need. I don't actually need any other controls for the fingers because those are all FK. And that is, of course, specific to this rig. But it sort of whittles things down. It sort of pares them down so that we don't have to deal with all the digits. We just need the arm. So this is our classic arm, and I'm going to duplicate it one more time, and then I'm going to come in and say, okay, this is from here on out going to be known as ye old arm IK. So prefix hierarchy names, and I'm going to call this one IK underscore, and I'm going to call this one FK underscore. And I'm modifying with the hierarchy names. So now we have an IK and an FK arm. Okay, well this one is still controlled by this controller right here, isn't it? Well, yes it is, which is the next thing we have to do. We have to go into the IK handles that we put in here and get rid of them. Just nuke them. Boom. We do not need it. You don't want to repurpose these. It doesn't make sense. So again, in the tutorial, I'm showing you how to do it for one arm, but you can expand that to doing it for the other arm as well as the leg. Since we deleted all of the fingers after the wrist, all you need for the leg is the knee, all the way to the hip, the knee, the ankle. Same thing as shoulder, elbow, wrist. So really it's the same thing because you're going to delete all the toes. You don't need two separate, three controls for the toes. So we've done FK, we now have an IK, and we're going to start setting things up. And since this is the left clavicle, the clever way we're going to get these to sort of follow along is that both the FK and the IK need to be parent constrained. And if you do it wrong, like I just did, because I didn't see the constraint pop up here, you do it the other way. Like that, and then you grab that, and then constraint parent. There we are. I needed that. Why am I doing it this way? Here's why. Because remember, we still need these extra arms to follow along with the main skeleton. Now this spine is FK. It's all FK. So our deviation between IK and FK, doubling that up as a hybrid, begins at the shoulder. We're going to go back one bone and lock it in with the existing skeleton so it follows it. Otherwise these arms are going to stay out in space when the character goes forward. So I'm going to create two parent constraints here. And that means that when I move this character up and down, those two arms now go with, right? There's the IK joint, and there's the FK joint. I bet you can't see those because, oh, there they are. Well, there's a drawing issue, of course, with Maya kind of saying, you want this one, you want this one, they're occupying the same space. But you can see that when I grab the hip controller now and move this character up and down, this arm goes with. So the next stop here, I'll raise that back to where it was. The next stop is to take this controller, and instead of using it for the goblin's arm, what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to create it for shoulder down to wrist here. And let's see if we can do that by coming into skeleton, create IK handle, go to the options, make sure you've got a rotate plane solver. Boy, it really loves putting things in odd places here. Rotate plane solver because we need an elbow control. And I'm going to come, I'm a little paranoid. It's going to put it on the wrong bloody arm. So I'm going to grab this and that, which are the other two arms, and do a Control H, which is hide. Just hide them. So all I have now is the IK. That's all I've got. That's all I can choose. Hooray for me. Skin, skeleton, create IK handle, and we go from shoulder to wrist. Great. That is sorted out. We put this up with our pre-existing handles right there. And I'm going to do this little trick where I grab the name of the other IK handle, which I've already named, Control C, and this is just to get the name of it. Control V, and I change R to L. And now I have a new left-handed IK control exactly where I want it. It's right on this. So that's pretty much what I've got going on, is that setup for the IK. The only problem is, of course, this is not responding to that controller because it has yet to be constrained to it. So let's just do a little undo there. I've got the body controllers, left hand constraints, the one I want. Here's a little trick for you. I want to see the left hand constraint. I want the IK here. What if things sort of scroll too far off? We're near the end of the screen here. What if things scroll a little too far off of the outliner? Well, here's a little cool trick. When you move your cursor down here to this dotted line and you see the cursor separate into an arrow sandwich, then click with your left mouse button and drag it up, and you've actually got two different windows for the outliner. So now I can have the hand constraint here, and then I can scroll down, and I've got my left hand IK. So I grab that which does the controlling, and then I grab that which is controlled, and I come up here to constrain, and I want to have a parent constraint. Let's try that parent constraint. La-di-da-di-dee, la-di-da-di-da. So we've got that, and then we also want to put a rotate pull vector constraint on it. And the other thing we want to do is we want to come up here to left elbow constraint, go down to the left hand IK, and put a pull vector constraint on it. So now we have this kind of control. We've got the elbow. So this is effectively our new IK. Let me turn off the controllers. Oh, would you stop doing that? It's so silly. All right, there you go. There you go. Out in the yard with you. So outliner goes out there. I'm going to turn off these controllers, and well, first I'm going to grab the one I want, which is this, and show you the new control that we have for this hand. Well, there we are. That's very cool. The second one, of course, is pure FK, and that is controlled by a box where the just like we did here with the constraints around the body, which were circles, and the boxes here, you can create boxes around the FK arms, and you can create separate controls around the FK arms, but the IK is really the tricky one. And here, in fact, this outliner is getting a little silly for me. Just one window, please. So now the next step is that you go in and you just like it is in the tutorial. It looks like I didn't get rid of the double window. There we go. Just like it is in the other tutorial, what you want to do is you want to be very clear about this process of taking the hierarchy here and just copying what you need, and then getting rid of the IK constraint on it and creating the IK down here with these extras, these floating skeletons. Because what's going to happen is, at the very end, we're going to grab these two floating skeleton things here, and we're going to group them. And in that group, it's going to be the IK skeleton. And that's something that when we bake, it's going to help us move the character around, and it certainly helps us do the IK FK rig, but we don't need it when we're done baking. See how that moves now? So when we're done baking, we can actually delete this, and it gets rid of the other two skeletons that are affixed to the clavicle just to follow it around. So that should answer the question as to why we did a parent constraint on the clavicle, because it needs to match this one perfectly, and yet it frees up movement from the shoulder to the wrist to be either IK or, in this case, to be FK. And that's really the long and short of it. If you have any questions, please ask me in class.